Hi, Philip. Great to have you on our podcast today.
Well, thanks, Max, for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Of course, you've done some super interesting things around the data and the AI space. But yeah, before we dive right into that, do you maybe want to present yourself to our listeners a bit?
Cool. Right. So my name is Filip Vitek. I happen to work most of my career in the jobs which are data related. So ever since leaving university, there's a silver lining through all of my jobs. I was very strong on quantitative things like math, physics, including world round of that, but I never wanted to be scientific. I make a joke that I used to like to play strategy games. So I wanted to get the things rolling. So basically, all of my previous career jobs has been in where data was necessary as a competitive advantage of a company or need a substantial increase. And as I was moving on, I had a chance to move from individual roles through team leads, through directors, all the way to VPs and SVPs. So I had the pleasure of seeing the whole spectrum of it, and I'm gladly share some stories today.
Awesome. Yeah, we're very excited for that. You already touched upon a bit. You've seen a lot of things. Was there actually one moment where you really realized, okay, data can really change the trajectory of a business?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to run a little bit away from the question. I'm going to view two, but I try to be brisk. So they'll be as short as a one would be. Okay. Well, when you think about data making really difference, I think a lot of companies would hope for data to have really monetary effect. And I had a pleasure when I worked for TeamViewer, when I was leading the data science team there. As you probably know, TeamViewer is one of the very successful German enterprises. And a very large user base. There's 2.9 billion devices which are using TeamViewer back then when I was working for that. And what was really nice that TeamViewer operates as a free-to-pay. So it's basically a free tier which you can use, but if you want to use it more advanced or more intensively, you have to buy a license. You can imagine that a lot of people were trying to stay under the radar and trying to use it heavily without buying the license. So one of the big things that we achieved, we did a very detailed behavioral profiling of the users, and we find the moments where you were kind of willing to pay for. And we pushed for that. So we created a tool which was actually trying to convert people. And as this was on a really huge user base, it brought a lot of inputs as well. So for I think 4 years that we're operating it, it brought 140 million euros in total. So if you did something which brought 100+ million euros for the company, you really feel that it made a difference. The second story is a bit different though. So I try to make data difference not only financially. So of course it's great to have bringing real tangible value, but then you also would like to swerve the direction of the things are going. So we had a moment when I was working for Allianz, and my team was charged with the mission to create a new mandatory car insurance, right? So, we were explicitly asked to do things to make it incomparable to the others. So to use maybe dimensions which the competitors are not using to make it different. Mm-hmm. We sat down with a team. We did a brainstorming of what can be possibly factors. And in order to be really open-minded, we included things like zodiac sign in, right? Mm-hmm. So we were testing if zodiac sign would actually make any difference. And guess what? After doing all the machine learning, zodiac sign was the second strongest factor to predict your car insurance claim. So we made it all the way to proposal to the board to actually create a cancer insurance and Leo insurance. You can guess how that was approved or not, but then we found out later on there's been a 7 other countries where they tried and it was exactly the same result. Yeah. So it seems to be working. And I think that the role of a data is not only to kind of stay aligned with whatever it needs to be, but also bring this inspiration or new angles to look at the things.
Yeah. Okay, that's really super interesting. Also love the story about the zodiac signs. Never heard about that, but you seem to be onto something there for sure. So that's great. You already have seen a lot on how data actually transforms businesses. I would say with the huge AI wave now, it's just the evolvement of data is the new oil, as we called it 10 years ago. When you look at the things you have seen, where does AI actually deliver real and tangible business value? And where do you think it's still mostly hype?
Yeah. This is a very good question. But what one needs to understand is that media tend to polarize this question into either it works perfectly or it doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
From my perspective, as I had a pleasure of implementing AI for 7+ companies, so I think that most of the things the AI can do is now in the spectrum of doable but still difficult.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that it is on a spectrum of impossible anymore. I only have few things which I'm gonna name in a while, which I think are completely hyped, and we are not ready to be there yet.
Yeah.
But most of the things are in a spectrum of they can be done. There are few things which I would reserve for a category. You absolutely should do that.
Yeah.
Because it's already so easy and it's almost becoming a commodity that if you're not doing that as a company, you're kind of missing on that. And this would be mainly kind of new medical molecules research. So looking for new drugs. I mean, there, the implications and the speed up of the process is so substantial that I think a pharma company who does not do that is now kind of risking their future.
Yeah.
Also, an area where AI is already super ripe and ready to be used is audio transcription. So when you have calls, podcasts, or whatever, a source of information which is in audio, the machines are already damn good in transcribing and giving you the audio. So if you're not doing it, that meeting minutes or kind of interview summaries or whatever, I think you're already kind of wasting time for yourself. Yeah. Also, what AIs are already very good in is summarizing the knowledge. So not necessarily kind of advising or researching the facts, they can still hallucinate. But if you give them a document, which is, 20 pages, and you ask them question, they're probably not going to hallucinate about the document itself because they are locked down to seeking the answer within the document which you provided. So the risk of being kind of diverted or misled by the AI in summarizing documents is already very low, and therefore I suggest to use it. And then one topic which will probably be a bit more commercial is a product recommendation. So if you don't have a product recommendation in your business, you're doing yourself an injustice. So these are kind of topics which are already ripe for AI.
Mm-hmm.
To cover the other side of the spectrum, which you also named, well, where is it hype? So as I said, I only have very few things which I think are hype. Almost everything is to some extent possible and positive in AI by now. The three things which I think are still super hyped, so the discussion and hopes are way ahead of the deliverable results, is humanoid robotics.
Yeah.
So we do see Boston Dynamics robots doing parkour or jumping things. Yeah, that's nice. But honestly, the real implementation into the life, so that they are useful, is still few years ahead of us. So that's one area where, even though we see a lot of those, but most of the existing solutions are not good enough yet. The other topic where I find that the AI hype is kind of running too high is the single person company analogy, which mainly I think Sam Altman from OpenAI was pushing. Yeah. So he declared that we are just about to see a single person companies. Even though this might exist, I mean, there's a lot of weird things which exist in the world. So I'm not ruling out this might exist. I think we are far away from this being a trend.
Yeah.
Now we can later come to the point, why is it so? But I don't think this is a reality and this is the hype. And the last one is, which might be a little bit strange, but when AI started, it was kind of so boasting and so all over the place. It was promising also that we're going to be able to communicate with animals. So we're not there. So talking to animals is a category where it's still a sci-fi, and I don't think that the AI is delivering on any hopes or promises. So these are the 3 areas. But as you see, they are not the usual things. So everything which I didn't mention, I would believe is in a spectrum of possible.
Okay, I see. So a lot of research to be done on communicating with animals. When it comes to, I think, not a one-person company, I think that's a super interesting one. You said we're not there yet. You think we are, it's in reach? Or you think this is something utopian that's going to take 20 more years?
If I take it literally, single person, I don't think so. That's what even Sam Altman really meant by that.
Yeah.
Because if it's 1 or 2 or 3, I don't think so it really changes the game. And I don't think so if you can build $100 billion company, you would dare to share with 2 other people to be a shareholders, right? So I think that we are literally already in an era, and I do see that the AI teams and the teams which are building products are getting smaller and smaller, significantly smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
When I look back, some of the things which I did for my employers, I don't know, 5-10 years back, which required a sensible team of, I don't know, 20, 30 people, now would be doable with 3 or 4. So that's factor of a 10, right? So I think we got significantly smaller. Can we get to the point that the whole company would be 2-3 people? Probably for some companies we can, but I don't think it's going to be a norm. Because I mean, you can make a hospital of 2-3 people, but would you like to be kind of treated in a hospital which is totally run by 2-3 people? I would have some doubts, right? So I don't think so that we should necessarily take this as a goal or target, but we are definitely significantly increasing the momentum towards that point.
Yeah, I get that. Totally agree with you here. I mean, you also mentioned a lot of use cases that you think are in reach or that already really deliver some value. Yet there are those reports in the last weeks that a lot of companies heavily invest in AI tools, but in the end fail to generate impact. Why do you think that happens so often?
This is a very, very good question. And I'm glad you're bringing this up because I think the answer to this is visible or, let's say, obvious only to people who try to do large-scale AI solutions. Because maybe you can do, like, I don't know, you take another banana and you change your image, or you take ChatGPT and it like rephrases your document or CV or whatever you want to do it. So it feels tangible, but it is because you're like highly restricting the environment in which this use case is happening. The moment that you have very little control about the environment, let's say you open it up to the wild customer base and they can ask or do whatever they wish, the tools tend to fail because they are not ready for like the diversity or, let's say, differences of different human approaches. And most of the tools are also not accounting for human emotions yet.
Yeah.
So I would say that we are a little bit in a spectrum where the large frontier labs are throwing away or throwing into the space tools, and they are trying to convince people that they are ready for the use cases. But make no mistake, they take no responsibility for how you use it. So they give you ChatGPT, but they don't tell you how ChatGPT shall be used to replace a doctor, right?
Yeah.
And maybe like with a lot of effort, it can to some extent do that, but definitely not out of the box the way that you like take it out of after logging into OpenAI webpage, right? So I would make an analogy here. So I think it's a little. If you look back in the times when we got electricity implemented into our society, theoretically, the companies could have gone like, "I'm gonna give you an automated cook, which is going to like serve you all the dishes. It's going to go buy the ratios. It's going to cook it, serve it to you." No, they didn't. What they did, they invented electric appliances, and how we ended up. We ended up with a household full of different appliances which don't talk to each other, which are for purpose. But the business for them was good. Like they gave you microwave, they gave you dishwasher, they gave you washing machine, but like they are completely disintegrated, and you need to be the interface between them. So I think we're a little bit in this phase now in AI. So the companies are putting out the models which maybe do a particular job, limited job well, as the washing machine does, but are completely useless or maybe even counterproductive because they take a lot of space for other things, right?
Yeah.
And what I foresee is going to come is that we need to get over this phase. So we need to get over the principle that you can go and you can like watch a YouTube video how to do, I don't know, with NA8 or make a Zapier or whatever workflow you use, your own AI agents. I think this is just illusion phase. We're gonna like wake up from this, and the real progress of the AI will have to be different.
Yeah. So you would say there's a lot of value yet to be unlocked with making those different tools and platforms communicate with each other?
Absolutely. Now imagine that your washing machine could be also making dishes and cooking for you. Wouldn't it be great?
I would love
Everybody
it.
would like to have one, but it has never happened.
Yeah. Okay. Super interesting. What role does data literacy play here? I mean, I also read in my research that, for example, at Flaconi, you got more than 90% of employees actually using data regularly. So apart from what role does it play, also how did you achieve that?
Yes. So I think in order to answer this question for you properly, I need to decompose it into 3 elements.
Yeah.
Because and maybe I wouldn't have to do it 5 years back, but now with the AI, it's absolutely necessary to do it because some of those elements are going along with the AI development and some of them are not. So let me take a while to explain this. So first of all, when you look at the data literacy, the first element of a data literacy is how to extract data. So can you go to a data source and literally dig it out of the data source? For easy orientation of audience listeners, this would be done by the SQL before, right? So can you actually write an SQL query, or maybe if it's non-SQL database, whatever other graph query or whatever you're using, can you write a piece of a code or script which is extracting the data? If you can't, you're nowhere, because you can't tell database, or back then you couldn't, now you can, but back then you couldn't tell database hey, give me this data. You need to communicate with the database the code way, right? So when we were working IT literacy, if you couldn't extract the data, you couldn't work on them. So that was first prerequisite.
Yeah.
Second important element was, okay, now you can extract the data. Can you actually interpret it? Meaning do you know what it means? Can you kind of read out of it? Because if you can't, well, then you just got a spreadsheet of a data points and you may no conclusion. So can you actually decide about it? And then the third piece of data literacy is can you kind of visualize or make it actionable for decision, right?
Yeah.
So these 3 elements. Now, why I'm decomposing this into 3 elements? Because if I now join Flaconi again and I have to work on IT literacy, I would be not able to do it that way that we did before. Why? Because the pushing people to learn SQL probably doesn't make sense anymore, because the AI can write almost perfect SQL, can translate your human understanding into SQL. And I think this is also a topic which, to my understanding, your business is working on. So I shouldn't be preaching this to you. You probably know better than me this. But so I would not invest time now to teach people SQL anymore, because it's probably going to be useless. For maybe for a year or two still okay, but in 3-5 years time it's going to be completely useless. Yeah. So if I was now charged with a mission to increase the data literacy, I would focus on the element of being able to verify if the conclusions of a data that AI suggests is the real thing. So having some skills in kind of understanding in a second pillar of the data literacy. And then I would mainly focus on, okay, so what? So what kind of decisions you can drive you were not driving before by data? Now that you don't even have to know SQL to extract it, you don't even have to know how to make a graph out of it, because AI can do it for you. Now, how do you actually make difference? So if now in 2025, I would have to start a data literacy piece, I would strongly push for the decision part, and a little bit arm people with skills to verify if the LLM or AI is rightly making conclusion from the data, but just to double check. And that would be the way to look at it now.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. That's super interesting. So you say everything else is becoming a commodity, but actually taking the decision based on the data, that's what's gonna tell people apart.
Absolutely. And I'm not saying that we might not arrive to the point where some people would be willing to give up also hand over the decision part to machines. But I think for any sensible business, then you're losing oversight of what's going on. So I don't think that this is going to be for foreseeable future the mainstream things. Maybe there will be isolated use cases where you, I don't know, you have an automated blitz which scans the car which is speeding, is going to send the ticket and charge you directly from. Maybe that is going to happen, because that is what should happen. Yeah. But in most of the businesses, I don't think so, that we are just about to give up the decision element, and that is going to be important.
Interesting. Can data itself then still be a competitive edge in 2025 or plus?
Oh,
Because
wow, boy. This is one of the toughest one that we have to discuss today. As you say in German, nein. So yes and no. I don't try to kind of lean to an easy answer. So sorry for being a little bit more modest, but let me explain the yes part and the no part of the answer.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I start with a positive. Yes, it is still an advantage on a micro level. So for your particular company, if you know what your customers prefer, how they behave, how they react to marketing, what is their shopping patterns, what is their hopes, what is their kind of product preferences. If you know this, it is still making difference.
Yeah.
And if your competitor can steal that, he or she will be able to use it against you. So that means that this is still valuable. So on a like individual customer basis, the data is still the very important essence and is a competitive advantage. On a macro base, like data which you can collect out of the web or are out there, I don't think so that's the case anymore. I'm going to give you a very easy example on this one, which I try to give when somebody's asking this question to me. So imagine I have a budget to ask 10,000 people something in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of question would you be not able to get answer for?
Mm-hmm.
And I think like even bizarre things like what's your favorite, I don't know, sexual position can be researched if you have like a large enough budget. So, I'm using this weird example just to indicate that I don't think that if you really want to get the data, there is any limits. So like very often you can even get it free, like scraping it from some web pages, or what is a new trend, like making synthetic data. So like asking LLMs, so this is the natural distribution of population for this particular country or culture. What would be the set of reactions and what would be their share on a total? And LLM can give you a pretty good answer. So if you want to build your business on like understanding the general public information, I think this is not a competitive advantage anymore. And you should not be making assumption that this is unique. However, the microdata in particular companies, in particular company databases are still a competitive advantage.
Yeah, super good. I think I totally agree with you here, definitely. When we come a bit back to the use cases and from all your experience, are there any underrated ones, like ones that are not shiny, flashy, or sexy, but that actually are still driving value that companies are overlooking?
Yes. So to my biggest surprise, like most of the times when I join a company, I try to make a data assessment, like how mature the company is and what are the pieces that it should still get. And most of my last jobs when I entered new into the organization, I was super shocked to find out that companies are underrating the external data collection.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna give you an example.
Yeah.
When I joined Flaconi was very weak on actually collecting the external data about the competitors. Now it looks insanity to me because if you're in e-commerce business, basically all your competitors' data is out there because all their prices, all their product portfolios, new unlisting, delistings, all this information you can actually infer freely from the web, and it's legal to do that, right? So I am a bit surprised why companies are underusing or underutilizing the external data collection, and I think it's a big mistake, especially in the area of competitive monitoring or like because now I'm not saying that you should do this, but just like follow my kind of mental experiment here. Imagine your competitor has a newsletter or like sends a marketing materials on a regular basis. So how far today it is, or how complicated today it is to sign up for email address and have a bot to regularly summarize and list out for you what are they pushing for, what are the prices. I mean, it's also like a 10 or 15 minutes work to set up something like that, right? So most of the companies don't do. So that's one thing. Second thing, which I think is underrated pretty heavily, is the content, especially video content creation.
Yeah.
We are in an era where it's super easy to create very lively videos, which sell much better than static images, or are more convincing in like conveying whatever message you want to convey. So I think a lot of companies are shooting into their own, like not trying to utilize the video creation properly. And the last one, which I think is super heavily underutilized, is hiring process.
Mm-hmm.
When you still have people signing up for company-specific web pages where you need to upload the data. Everybody has a different form. Now somebody has to look through. Some of them already do pre-screen with AI, but then still humans go through. Then the whole interview, like all the technical testing and everything, is still human-based. I think this is like underutilizing the AI. So these are the three areas which I think are most heavily underutilized in AI.
Definitely. I think also the last one, like I know a lot of people who have gone or currently in application processes on one or the other side. And I think this is still a huge pain. So helping out there with.
And it's also vastly inefficient. Like if you think about it, if you have to have, I don't know, 10 or 15 candidates who go through 5 or 6 rounds of like talking to humans, to your employees, the amount of a time that you burn on just picking one person is just ridiculous.
It's huge. It's huge. I mean, you have already, like you said, you started as a data scientist, now you're in VP roles and leading teams. How does leadership in data, in your opinion, differ from leadership in other functions?
Yeah. I'll try to kind of look back and distill what I think about this. So one thing which I can definitely name, and it's going to be probably a bit controversial, so I'll put a disclaimer on that, but most of the other C-level roles are more aimed at stability or, let's say, consistency. Let me give you an example. So it's not expected of a CFO to change the bank account or like a banking provider every year.
Yeah.
It's probably not expected of a chief operating officer to change the location of the factory every year, right?
Yeah.
Now, it is expected of a data people to change the approaches that they use almost every year now, in AI almost every quarter, right? So I think I'm not saying that the other members of a top management would be like a rigid or anti-innovation. No, that would be like misreading what I'm trying to say. But in general, most of the positions in top management or leadership are for preventing chaos and like trying to make consistency, proficiency to reap the reward from repeating the processes. Now, in data and AI, this is not the case. If you keep on using the same database for 5-10 years, you're definitely rusty, and like you probably haven't thought about all the new possibilities that you can use or have. The same thing for like AI. If you use the same AI model, which was like popular 2 years back, you're already way behind the wave of what should you be using. So leading data is a little bit prone to self-disruption or self-alteration. Otherwise, you're going to be hit by the standards moving ahead so quickly. So that's one thing. Second thing which I noticed is that you need to be more disciplined. Because especially with this data literacy, now imagine that you're preaching data literacy, but you're making decisions which are not data-based. Like, it's going to be very easy. Like you preach water and drink wine, right? Scenario. So I think that the leaders in data have to be much more disciplined to know that you need to kind of even strongly push for using the data. Sometimes can be even to your kind of discomfort, but it should be something which you try to be disciplined about. If you're not, then you can't blame the others being not data-driven.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, apart from data leaders, I think like almost every executive nowadays says that data is super important. We need to be a data-driven organization and so on. Yet from a personal experience, that's not always the case. Do you think that's a cultural problem, or what are the hurdles there in general?
It is both cultural problem, which I'm going to give you a few bullet points about in a while, but it is also a little bit imposter problem. So it is also taboo to say that you will not be a data-driven. Yeah.
Yes.
Like imagine you walk into the company and on interview you say, I'm completely not data driven.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to increase your chances of being hired probably.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't mean it. They just say it because they expect it to say. And then anytime they have a like opportunistic chance not to use data and take a shortcut, they do.
Yeah.
So I think the problem with the kind of hurdles of being data driven is that a lot of people don't really mean it and they need to play the game and then they want to cheat on the game. And that includes also like a top management, right? Because, and I'm going to use a specific example. So if you are really data driven, you have to be also transparent because you need to prove your decisions with the data. Now, how many CEOs are comfortable with like their salaries being kind of public or KPIs of how their decisions ended up being successful and so on, right? So I think a lot of people don't really want to have a full data-driven, full data transparency mode.
Yeah.
And then they try to kind of balance in between, yeah, I say so, but I don't really mean it, and so on. So that's it. The other thing which is important and was for me a bit interesting coming to Germany because I don't come originally from Germany. But when I came, when I moved to Germany and start to live and work here, the power distance is a little bit complicated. So a lot of companies, for good or bad, I mean, it's a feature. It's not something you should avoid. Have a lot of like a power distance between the levels. Now imagine that you are on a meeting where you are, and there's like 3 levels of management above you. And now the CEO says something. So how many people dare to stand up and say like, this is completely bullshit because I have a data to prove it's wrong? Maybe you gently try. But then if the C-level person like double downs and like displays you don't understand that. You only have like a limited understanding of whatever, you will not push harder, right?
Yeah.
So having this power distance and having this not really meaning it results usually into that some things are not even being collected. So the data are not even being traced because if they were, maybe some people would be discomfortable with that, or they would not see at best any advantage in it because they will not make decisions based on that, right? So like usual thing is if you don't measure something, it's difficult to make a decision about it. But if you don't measure it, then you also cannot say if this was good or bad.
Absolutely.
And last thing which I want to say is a little bit also like shame on us, the data people. I think a lot of data top managers or people responsible for implementing data driven approaches think about it as a data dictatorship. So when data says that we should do A, if A/B testing says we should do A, we're going to do A.
Yeah.
Now, if you really think about it, the way that the data works and statistics is that you are allowed to diverge from an optimal scenario because this is the only way how you test if your borders are correct. If you assume that like 90 degrees is the right temperature for boiling water, you never get to 100 because you will always end up with 90 being already there, right? So the same way, if you don't allow, occasionally people disregard the data, then you are in a scenario that you never really test the real average values or like the borders of the process, and then you're suboptimal. But just to make this clear, I'm not suggesting that here and then you should forget about being data driven. What I say is it should be always clear from the data what the optimal scenario is, and we should have the right to diverge it, but we should document it, and then we should come back and say, okay, we dare to not follow the data for some reasons. Now, how often this was actually a good idea and how often this is a bad idea? And most of the companies don't come here. They either kind of completely disregard the data because they say, oh, there has to be, especially in sales, there have to be things which override the data. And probably there are. But then they don't record it and they don't have like a success rate of overriding the data calculated. And the other way around, people say, well, no, the A/B test says A. How you dare suggest we're going to do B if A/B tests show we should do A?
Yeah.
And that's the wrong way to look at it.
That's super interesting. I think a lot of people would have taken out their pen at this stage to write down what you're saying. It's really interesting. If for the next question, we focus on the executives who actually mean it, being data-driven, but are not yet. If you had to give them 3 steps to make data work in your organization, what would that be?
Yes. So this is an easy one for me because I've been in scenarios where I was asked to do exactly this. And as I had a chance to like implement data in 8 different industries, I have a little bit of a like oversight of what works across the board and what doesn't. So the first thing which I would say is store digitally any data you can, because the storage in like S3 or whatever you're using for storing is so cheap, it's almost free. Like literally you can, most of the companies could probably, like mid-sized companies can store all their data that they ever had for a few $100 or euros, right? So why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you even? So I think that the very, very first key principle is do store any data point that you can have access to. I mean, you can still decide later to purge it if you don't need it anymore. You can have a retention policy and you say, I don't really care what was the, I don't know, sentiment of a customer 10 years ago because it's not relevant anymore. And you can dispose the data, but like, why would you not save it first place? So design the processes in a way that every single data point which can be stored will be stored. And maybe you can think about it later. Of course, do it in a way that's not chaos. Like don't put like a random file names like 0766743, which nobody knows what it holds. That's not the way to do it. But please do store all of the data points. So that's one. Second is try to auto crunch and stimulate by the data. What I mean by that is don't try to invest into people spending time on analyzing the data. Create a data bots, processes, tools, whatever you call it, for them to bring the information to you. So let me give you an example here. So when companies have their data warehouses and they have some kind of business intelligence tool like Tableau or I don't know, Power BI or whatever they use, very often it ends up in a way like, hey, there is a way for somebody who is trained in using this software to go and create a graph or create a report. Okay. Now that's not really using the data properly. The really using data is properly that, and all of those tools allow for that, but very few organizations are using that. Generate the report automatically, refresh it every morning, and send it out automatically to the whoever needs to see that. Okay. Yeah. And of course, like in first wave, you're going to send 20 reports, and then probably you realize that, okay, I need maybe a cockpit dashboard, which like summarizes it. And I'm not going to send a raw individual pieces. I'm going to send this cockpit dashboard, which kind of covers all. And maybe later on in stage 3, you find out that I don't even want to send a cockpit. I want to only say things which are relevant on a cockpit. So maybe I'm going to make the graphs which are not relevant gray and only make color for the graphs which I think are relevant for today for the person to look at. So this is like a second piece of advice. Get to the point where you are not a servant of a data is servant of you, and you receive it, and you invest a little bit into these kind of regulated, automated processes digging the data for you. So that's number 2. And then the third one is the most difficult one, but you only going to get data-driven if you obey it, and then don't accept a non-data supported opinion. Yeah. Including the CEOs. Yeah. So it should be normal for sitting in a meeting to ask which data point does actually support this. And just to be fair, it's not an interrogation question, so there should be allowed none. So there can be answer none, but then it should be treated as a non-supported data opinion, right? Yeah. The worst thing is that very often there is a data, but for negligence or maybe sometimes for purpose, some of the managerial levels choose to ignore it because maybe it would make their life harder, or they just are not aware that the data is there, or like they don't want to like invest time into bring it up. But if you really do the first 2 steps well, so you cover the data collection, so you don't miss any data point you can, and you have an automated process to surface it, then the time needed to actually validate or disprove the opinion should be very little. And if that's the case, then you should be utilizing it. And if you're not, then, well, you're not really being data-driven.
Absolutely agree. Awesome. Lastly, 2 very blunt questions. We're going to start with the first one.
Good on me.
Are we at the peak of the AI hype cycle right now, or is it the beginning?
I might surprise you by answering it both.
Okay.
And so how do I mean that? So I think we are at the point where the expectations about AI are starting to be ahead of the deliverables. So some might call it a hype. I just think it is because the approach is not right. We're focusing on the wrong things. We're like focusing on the tools, which we already discussed about.
Yeah.
So we will need to have a change in approach before we can reap the benefit of the AI. But once we do it, the benefit is going to be significantly bigger than it is now. So we are still probably like order of 1 or 2 magnitudes below what can AI bring. So that means like 10 times or 100 times more AI can bring, but not like linearly continuing on a pathway that we are now. We need to change the approach. And if we do that, then we can unlock much more value. But if we don't, we're going to have probably another AI winter when people need to have a disillusionment about, okay, it doesn't work the way that I was fooled into believing it works.
Okay, very great. Super interesting. And second blunt one, which upcoming technologies or trends in AI/data excite you most for the next decade? What do you think we will see in the future?
Oh boy, decade is really, really tough. Few weeks back, I wrote a blog post, also in English, so even your audience can enjoy it, which is called AI Will Hit Me Before I'm 50. It was on my 43rd birthday this year, which I wrote this. So you can do the math. It's like 7 years from now, okay? And honestly, I think me myself, as much as I understand AI, I can predict probably 3 to 5 years. I don't dare to go beyond that, but already these 3 to 5 years are probably quite dramatic. This is why I wrote that it's going to hit me. And my motivation to write this blog post was to wake up people which are like in their middle ages, like and younger, because that means that AI is going to significantly change your life before you retire. Because many people think, okay, I don't know, 40, 50, I somehow survive until the pension and I don't really need to make the drastic change. No, you will have to. And the sooner you realize this, the better. And it's everybody like 40 and younger who's going to face this. So this is why I made the statement that it's going to hit me before I'm 50. Now, to the things which I mentioned there. So one thing which is going to happen, which is probably not that dramatic for our day-to-day lives, but is going to be quite dramatic for the industry, is we were going to get to an AI-generated movie films. So like movie length of the films. So I talked to a few guys in this AI specific niche, and they told me that we are literally very close to the point where you would be not only able to like get the whole film done by AI, but you will be able to choose an actor which is going to play the role. So you like Denzel Washington, you can have a Denzel Washington. You like Brad Pitt, you can have a Brad Pitt playing the same role. And it's going to, like on a Netflix, auto-generate or similar network, auto-generate for you the whole film with this actor that you chose. And you can have your own version of that particular film. So that is going to be pretty huge. And I think like that is going to skyrocket the consumption of the media, because now everybody would like to see that version of Lord of the Rings, this version of Lord of the Rings, or whatever you kind of fan of. Now, the second thing, which I think is going to be super important, and is probably not that relevant for you and me, but is relevant for people which are a bit younger, is the education. So the education is going to significantly change, and I have to say it's going to go from the highest to the lowest. So the like elementary school are going to be the last ones to be altered by this for good reasons. Because like we haven't found a better way for having a good human teacher to teach you how to write or read. And I don't think so we're going to have anything like that anytime soon, because you also need like a personal development in that stage. And so it's super complicated. But hey, like university education, like how complicated it is to build a digital version of a professor, both knowledge-wise, content-wise, and like education-wise. I mean, I think the COVID times where a lot of students were only left with like a remote distance learning has proven that if on the other side of the education screen was a pre-recorded video or an AI avatar, would probably work equally good, maybe even better. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that the university education is going to significantly alter also because if you think about it, most of the universities declare that you go study university because you want to become an expert in something. But like only 3 to 4% of people go on PhD studies, which they can claim that I am studying for like being really deep into the topic and I want to be expert. That means 96% of the people go study university to get a certificate which is useful for their working life.
Yeah.
So they're basically trying to prove to their future employers, I am somehow educated in due topic. Please give me a job in this area. Now, if universities are only for this, how complicated it is for AI to give you that knowledge and that certificate.
Yeah.
So I think that the university education is going to be significantly disrupted. And the way to collect, like if you only need a certificate for the employer, you will not need to study university anymore. And most of the people do it for that reason. So that is what is going to happen. And then just quickly, the third one, which I named, is autonomous vehicles. So we are really on the edge of autonomous vehicles being useful. It's probably not that visible here. I work for California company and I went to US pretty often. And when you see Waymos or like a Tesla robotaxis and other things, it is already there.
Yeah.
They are already testing it. They are getting very good results. They're getting like very good also incident scores. So it is going to be only a matter of time where this is going to be scaled. Somebody will need to buy a lot of cars to replace the existing ones. Because unfortunately you need to have a new cars because the old cars would not work well because you need to have a LiDAR on a roof and everything. But this is going to happen, and this is going to be huge. And if you are earning your bread in like a truck driver or a taxi driver, I would be super alarmed because it's just a year, 2 or 3, when this is going to get really big.
Yeah, awesome. Wow. Yeah, Filip, thank you very, very much for being a wonderful guest. Super interesting insights. Really great. Do you have any last words you want to tell our listeners, or maybe some advertisements for yourself, like where people can find you or read your blog?
Yes. So as for where you can find me, so I'm mostly active on LinkedIn. I try to post a lot of posts there. I also run my own AI podcast, which is called Mindset, spelled with MAI. So AI Mindset, which you can follow if you wish to. And I read a blog post as well. It's called the Mighty Data as a one word in English, where they can follow me. Now, with the last words, I have been a little bit thinking about how to sum up the questions that we discussed today and the general development. And I will cite a research which I have seen just a few days back, which was trying to look at how AI is going to influence people and their working skills. And most of the research in this area, even though we're a little bit early, but most of the research in this area agrees on that AI will make the great, so already skilled people even more skilled or more efficient, but it will make the least skilled people significantly boost their efficiency. So let me take it on a way. So let's say a great programmer will be somewhat more faster and quicker in doing the job. But if you compare the performance of the weak programmer, like 2 years back, and now with the AI, he or she is going to look significantly more efficient.
Yeah.
So as a result, AI is helping the ones which are not super skilled to get closer to the ones who are skilled. And the only answer for you, if you are in this environment, is try to be in the top tier. So my suggestion that I try to make to my employees in my teams and friends and other people who want to talk about this with me is, now is the time for you to invest to get in the top tier, because then your chances of AI working with you and not against you are much higher. If you swim down the stream with like being a mid-tier or below, yes, for some time you will feel enlightened because the AI will help you. But it'll be a little bit of the illusion, and then comes the kind of negative effect of that you might be replaced, because then AI is going to do 95% of what you can do, and then the job is done. So this is what I would like to keep the listeners and viewers with. Try to get in the top tier of your area. This is going to significantly improve your chances. Upskill, look at the things, try to utilize it for yourself in order to kind of ensure your better future.
Awesome. Thank you a lot for joining us today, Filip.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.